welcome once again to Tom's Hit Parade. I figured since it's the end of April and I haven't done my April backtracks yet, well, I figured now's the time, right? Sorry, I intended to put this out much earlier in the month, but, well, things conspired against me one way or another, and, well, here we are. But not to worry, you won't have to wait nearly as long for the May backtracks feature. In fact, I kind of intend to put it out next weekend, but don't hold me to that. But that's the plan anyway. So, yeah, let's get right down to it, why don't we? In April of 1963, 55 years ago, Duke Ellington's album Afro Bossa was released. Now, I tried to find some kind of trivia or some other information about this album online, but well, all I could find was the track listing. So, you don't get a factoid about that one, I'm afraid. And also released that month was Jackie Wilson's 11th album, Baby Workout, which reached number 36 on the pop charts. Yeah, information on albums more than 50 years ago, unless they're really huge, is kind of hard to come by on the internet for some reason. But anyway, half a century ago in April 1968, Simon and Garfunkel released their classic iconic album, Bookends. It featured the singles Hazy Shade of Winter, America, and Mrs. Robinson. And as a trivia tidbit, it was actually released the day before the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Also released that month was the Zombies' sophomore album, Odyssey and Oracle. It had what was probably their most famous single, Time of the Season, and it would prove to be their last album for 23 years. Happy 45th birthday to the Eagles' sophomore album, Desperado. It featured the singles Tequila Sunrise and Outlaw Man, as well as the very popular title track, Desperado, which actually was never released as a single. Here's a trivia tidbit for you. And in another note, this is the only Eagles album which featured a photo of the band members on the cover. And also released that month was the Spinners' self-titled third album. It was their first album for Atlantic Records, and it featured the hits I'll Be Around and Could It Be I'm Falling in Love. 4 decades ago, in April of 1978, the soundtrack from the blockbuster movie musical Grease hit the record shelves. It reached number 1 on the US, UK, and Australian album charts. It received a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year, and it's been certified 8 times platinum. And it also bore no fewer than 4 top 40 singles, including the title track, You're the One That I Want, Hopelessly Devoted to You, and Summer Nights. Also released in April of 1978 was Willie Nelson's 23rd album, Stardust. It was unusual fare for Willie. It was actually, rather than his normal country songs, this was an album of his versions of classic songs from the Great American Songbook. Nevertheless, for being an unconventional Willie album, it still went 5 times platinum and hit number 1 on the country album charts and number 30 on the Billboard 200. Happy 35th birthday to Men at Work's sophomore album, Cargo. It hit number 3 on the Billboard 200 and featured the singles Overkill, Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive, and It's a Mistake. And also, R.E.M. debuted with their album, Murmur. It reached number 36 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it took 8 years to go gold. It featured the singles Radio Free Europe and Talk About the Passion. I guess bigger things were to come from R.E.M., weren't they? 3 decades ago, in April of 1988, now we're talking, Weird Al Yankovic put out his 5th album, Even Worse. It reached number 27 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it was his first album that would eventually go platinum. It featured the hit songs Fat, a parody, of course, of Michael Jackson's Bad, and Lasagna, a parody of La Bamba. And also, Tracy Chapman was introduced to the world with her debut album, self-titled. It went 6 times platinum. It went to number 1 on the Billboard charts and featured the singles Fast Car, Baby Can I Hold You, and Talkin' About a Revolution. A quarter of a century ago, in April of 1993, Aerosmith released their 11th album, Get a Grip. It's their 2nd best-selling album of all time. It's gone 7 times platinum, and it was their last album for Geffen Records. It featured the singles Livin' on the Edge, Crazy, and Eat the Rich. Also released that same month was Bruce Hornsby's 4th album, Harbor Lights. It didn't have any charting singles, but it did feature guest appearances by Jerry Garcia, Bonnie Raitt, Branford Marsalis, and Phil Collins. Happy 20th birthday to Athenaeum's debut album, Radiance. This is an alt-rock group that I really came to enjoy. They only put out 2 albums, but I really loved them. The lead man was a guy named Mark Cano, who's just got a great baritone voice. I always do this when I talk about voices, I don't know why. It featured a few hit singles. The album didn't chart, but it featured a few hit singles. What I Didn't Know, which reached number 58 on the Billboard Hot 100, as well as Flat Tire and Unnoticed. And also that same month, the Dave Matthews Band released their 3rd album, Before These Crowded Streets. It broke the Titanic soundtrack's 16-week run at number 1 on the Billboard charts, and it featured the singles Crush and Don't Drink the Water. Happy 15th birthday to Kelly Clarkson's debut album, Thankful. She was, of course, the winner of the first season of American Idol. The album debuted at number 1 on the charts and featured the singles A Moment Like This and Miss Independent. Also released that same month was the White Stripes' 4th album, Elephant. It received a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year, and it featured the singles Seven Nation Army and Hardest Button to Button. 10 years ago, in April of 2008, Tally Hall released the Atlantic Records version of their debut album, Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum, was previously released independently. This is a really fun listen. They're kind of a whimsical, they've got witty and whimsical lyrics, although sometimes their songs turn kind of serious. They're kind of somewhere between Bare Naked Ladies and They Might Be Giants, and with a bit of Weezer mixed in. It's really fun. Check this out if you haven't yet. It featured the single Good Day, which you might have heard. Also released 10 years ago this month was Steve Winwood's 9th and most recent album, 9 Lives. And it featured the single Dirty City, which featured Eric Clapton. And finally, down to the 5-year anniversaries. 5 years ago this month, in April of 2013, Brad Paisley released his 9th album, Wheelhouse. It was his first album not produced by Frank Rogers, and it featured the singles Southern Comfort Zone and Beat This Summer, and also the somewhat controversial song Accidental Racist, which featured LL Cool J. I just like Brad Paisley because he does unconventional things that the normal country singer just doesn't do. And also that month, 5 years ago this month, Michael Bublé's 6th album, To Be Loved, was released. It was produced by Bob Rock, and it featured the singles It's a Beautiful Day and Close Your Eyes. And it is once again time for the Spotlight album. This is yet again another artist that I've just not bothered exposing myself to, listening-wise. Get your minds out of the gutter. Beyond his hit singles. So I decided now was the time. This is 45 years old this month, this album. It is the 6th album by David Bowie, Aladdin Sane. I thought it was a great listen. I really enjoyed it. I was afraid of listening to David Bowie just because he's got that reputation for being a little bit out there. And, so I was just kind of wasn't sure. I like to think I'm not afraid to listen to anything. But still, I had a little apprehension. I don't know I wasn't sure if my ears were ready for David Bowie yet. I guess that's the best way to put it. But I really enjoyed this album. I think I just said that, but I'm saying it again. It was a lot more accessible than I thought it would be. And I think probably my favorite song on here is Time. I just love the lyrics in that. I mean, I've always kind of been fascinated with the notion of time and what it does and how it kind of controls us. But yeah, every song on here was just excellent. Panic in Detroit was probably my second favorite song on there. The piano work on this was something that really caught my ear. Some of the songs were just wonderful piano pieces. And their cover of Let's Spend the Night Together by the Stones, that was pretty good. I could say good things about every song. I'm going to have to listen to this again, I know. But yeah, for being my first exposure to David Bowie, it was a very good experience, and I will hesitate a lot less to buy more from David Bowie in the future. So yeah, sorry I couldn't give a more verbose review of that. It's, I'm still kind of absorbing it. I'm going to have to listen to it again, as I said. But yeah, if you are familiar with David Bowie, let me know what do you think is a really good album beyond this one to get started with. Because I would really, I've just kind of been curious about David Bowie. I like all of his singles, so I kind of have to wonder what amazing album tracks I might be missing in some of the albums of his. So yeah, please let me know. And if you have a favorite album that's celebrating a noteworthy anniversary this year, let me know about it. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Oh, point down to the right side of the screen. There you go. Subscribe button's down there. Yeah. And again, thank you very much for watching. New video coming fairly soon, I hope. And remember, life's too short to be a music snob.